So, properties, I will just move on to properties now that we have done this example. So, again so you have this psi, so let us say psi of x is equal to expectation of y given x, right. So, this is a random variable which is only a function of x or y, I mean it could be x given y, right, does not matter. Theorem, law of iterated expectation. So, this is a very important result. It says that expected, so the psi x is a random variable, right. Now, this if I take the expectation of that random variable, I get, so this is well defined, right. So, this is a sigma x measurable random variable. So, if I just average over the distribution of x, I will get some number. So, what happens is that you get the expectation of y, okay. It is a fairly remarkable important property of conditional expectations, okay. So, so a more fancy way of writing it is, so it is called law of iterations because the more fancy way of writing it is expectation of y given x equal to expectation of y, right. So, this is why it is called law of iterated expectation, you have two iterated expectations, right. So, this is a little, it is a slightly less transparent to write it this way, right. So, here the interpretation is you are taking expectation of y given x in that sense, right, it will be some random variable which is a function of what is on right side of the stick which is x, and then this expectation is with respect to x, right. Sometimes you people write little x, so just big X here just to sort of make explicit the fact that you are taking expectation with respect to the distribution of x, it can't be anything else by the way, right. So, it is this is a random variable which is a function of x, right, y is already averaged out so to speak. So, if you do that you get back the expectation of y, okay. So, this is a fairly important deep property of conditional expectation. To proving it is, so I mean so far we have only defined it for discrete and continuous random variables. So, any proof we can supply will only work for discrete random variables and jointly continuous random variables, in which case we will just write out the expressions and just prove it, okay. Let us okay, let us just do this for the discrete case, okay. I will do it for discrete, you do it for jointly continuous, and then we do not know anything beyond that at this point, right, what we can do we do not know. So, it is actually a fairly mechanical proof. So, expectation of psi x, which is expectation of y given x, is nothing but sum over x p x of x times expectation of y given, correct. So, psi of x is a random variable as a function of x, x itself takes a discrete set of values, right. So, this is psi of little x, right. So, this whole thing is psi of, correct, then it makes sense, right. Now, what am I going to do? I am going to write that out, okay. So, that is sum over p x of x, then I have sum over y times p x y given x, isn't it. So, y given x of y given x, correct. So, if you just do that summation, so y times you have that So, I can write this out, right. So, I have sum over x p x of x sum over y times joint over p x of x, okay. And then these will go, correct. So, then you will get sum over x comma y times correct, which is nothing but the expectation of y. Okay. So, I have been a little bit sloppy about not worrying about the order of summation and so on, right. So, if your random variables are all non negative, there is no problem, and also when the random variables all have well defined. So, if expected absolute x, expected absolute y are all well defined, you can interchange, there is no problem, okay. I have been a little bit sloppy, but this is the essence of the proof, okay. Okay, so is this clear? So, actually intuitively this is not all that difficult to comprehend. I mean at a very elementary level you let us say you have a class which has let us say several sections, right. You are just computing the class average by averaging these separate classes and then taking weighted average based on the number of students in each class, right. That is roughly what you are doing, right. You can think of what you are conditioning on as the section, right. Inside that section you are calculating an average, right, and then you are calculating weighted average across the classes, right. That is roughly what is happening, right. So, and then it is not surprising that if you do that you should get the overall average, right. Similarly, you can prove it for the jointly continuous case, except all these summations will become integrals, correct. So, but this is an important result, law of iterated expectations. Expectation of y given x is equal to expectation of y. So, I will give you an application of this law of iterated expectation. Consider do you remember random sum of random variables you had. So, S n is equal to sum over I equals 1 through n x I, right. So, where x I let us say are here x I is our IID and n and x I are independent, n and all the x I's are independent, okay. So, in this case if you want to compute expectation of S n, okay, you can do the following. I can just write it as expectation of S n given n, correct. Now, what is expectation of S n given n? So, I have to see in order to compute. So, this will be some function of the random variable capital N, right. So, first before I compute them I should compute fix n is equal to small n and compute, correct. So, let us compute consider expectation of S n given n is equal to n, okay. So, I am fixing n equal to n. So, I will get what will I get? I will get expectation of sum over I equals 1 through n. So, I will get this, right, x I given n is equal to little n, correct. So, this is equal to expectation of sum over I equals, so I am conditioning on n equal to little n, right. So, I can put a little n here, x I given n is equal to little n. So, far okay. Now, I have to use the fact that n is independent of all the x i's. So, conditioning on n equal to n does not change the distribution of the x i's, and therefore, it does not change the expectation of the x i's, correct. So, this will simply become, you can remove the expectation is what I am conditioning, right. So, this will simply become right. So, and this we know, right, this is just n times expectation of x, because all these x i's have expectation of x as their mean. So, great. So, this we know, right, so far with me. So, expectation of, thus expectation of S n given n will be equal to blindly replace small n with capital N, right, n times expectation of x. So, what kind of an object is this? This has to be a random variable, right, this is the conditional expectation, this is a random variable, that is a function of n, this guy is just a number, expectation of x is just a number. Therefore, expectation of S n is equal to expectation of S n given n, which is nothing but expectation of n times expectation of x. Okay. So, if you are summing random variables, IID random variables such that the number of terms in the summation is also a random variable that is independent of the x i's, you get the expectation of the sum is essentially the product of the expectation of n and each x, which seems to make perfect sense, right, it is perfectly intuitive. So, as an aside, so I mentioned earlier, I think that there may be scenarios of interest where capital N is dependent on the x i's, right, such as gambling, right, you may stop, the number of times you gamble may depend on how many you won and how much you lost, right. In those cases you cannot apply this, right, but you can apply somewhat more sophisticated techniques of analysis, and in particular when n is what is known as a stopping rule, a similar in exactly same equation holds, okay. So, I just wanted to mention that as an aside. So, even when n is dependent in a certain way on the x i's such that you stop gambling when you either lose $100 or win $100, let us say, even in that case this will hold, okay, but it is not following from our proof, okay. So, such an n that depends on the previous x i's is called a stopping rule, okay, we will not cover that in this course. So, basically in the case when n is dependent on x I, you can no longer make that step, because if you condition on n equal to n, the distribution of x i's will change, then you cannot go from there to here, right. So, you have to use some other techniques, but the similar equation holds, okay. So, that equation is called Wald's equality, okay. So, I want to state a generalization of this law of iterated expectations. More generally, we can show that for any measurable g with expected g of x finite, we can show that expected value of y minus psi y times wait a second. So, y minus psi x, I guess y minus psi x. So, y minus psi x times g of x equal to 0. Okay. So, in other words, or so what I mean is expected y g of x is equal to expected value of expectation of y given x times g of x. Okay. So, the psi of x is nothing but expectation of y given x. Okay. So, what we are saying is, so the earlier version is simply with g of x is equal to 1, right. The earlier iterated expectation is when g of x is equal to 1, right, expected y equal to expected y given x, right. Now, I am saying that no matter you can put any function of x you want and this will hold. Okay. Okay. So, this how will you show? You can actually write it out again, right. So, we only know, after all, we only know this definition for the case of discrete random variables and jointly continuous random variables. Just write both out and see that this works, right, whenever this expectations are defined, right. It is a very like that, just write it out. So, this you will be able to prove, right. So, I do not want to waste time proving this now, because I want to give a very nice geometric interpretation to this. Okay. So, what this is saying, so now okay, so now it is useful for us to think of expectation of y given x as some kind of an estimate of y given x. Okay. So, you think of x and y as two random variables, dependent random variables in general. So, generally if I give you x, you know something about y, right, if they are dependent. So, if I only give you x, let us say I only give you humidity today, x is humidity let us say, and y is some temperature or something. So, if I give you humidity, you may be able to give some estimate of the temperature in some sense, right. So, that is the kind of scenario we are looking at, right. So, y you do not know, x you know. Okay. So, you can think of expected y given x as some estimator for y that only depends on x, because x is known to me, right, only based on x I am estimating y, right. So, what this is saying, what our equation is saying is that so another way of looking at it is that y minus the estimate of y. So, this is nothing but expectation of y given x, right, this is psi of x, y minus estimate of y, right, which is the error in estimate, so to speak, right. So, y minus expectation of x is the error in your estimate, is uncorrelated with any function of x. Okay. Okay. So, covariance between this random variable and that will be 0, right. So, if you want to interpret this geometrically, you can say that the error is orthogonal to any function of x. Okay. So, if you are living on, so let us say these are all L2 random variables, right, finite variance random variables. So, you are living on, so this is, I am just drawing it like some Euclidean space, but this is really some Hilbert space, okay. And you are looking for an estimate of y, or estimate of y, right. So, you are, so let us say this is my, let us for the sake of argument let us say this is my y, I want to estimate y, okay, and you are constrained to the subspace. So, you are given x, right, you are, so you any estimate you want to make has to be a sigma x measurable random variable, right, it must be measurable with respect to sigma x, right, the set of all events determined by realization of x. So, the sigma x measurable random variables form a subspace of this Hilbert space that you can show, okay. And what you are saying is that, so if this is your y, okay, and g of x is any random variable in this subspace, all right, and what you are saying is that your estimation error, after all this psi of x is a function of x, all right. So, psi of x is somewhere here, okay, and you are saying that the difference between y and the estimate is orthogonal to anything here, any vector on this, right, which means that your, in some geometric sense, your conditional expectation is the foot of the perpendicular from y on the subspace of sigma x measurable random variables, okay. Now, do not ask me what these axes are, right, this I am just, this is some Hilbert space, I am just drawing it like some R2 for your easy picturization, okay, fine. So, y minus expectation of y given x, which is that vector, which is the estimation error, is orthogonal to the space of sigma x measurable random variables, okay, that is what this result is saying. Which brings me to the point of defining this conditional expectation in full generality, okay. So, the conditional expectation in full generality is defined using this equation. So, for any function g of x, measurable function g of x, there exists a unique sigma x measurable random variable which satisfies this equation, such a psi x is called the conditional expectation, okay. So, that psi x can be shown to exist uniquely up to almost surely unique, okay, and it has its orthogonal, I mean it has that interpretation, it is basically defined as the foot of the perpendicular on the space of sigma x measurable random variables, okay. Okay, great. So far okay. So, this is what is used as the defining property of conditional expectation when x and y are not necessarily discrete or jointly continuous or any such thing, they can be whatever they want, and Kolmogorov proved that such a random variable psi x exists almost surely unique, okay. So, that is taken as the conditional expectation, okay, but it cannot be given as a explicit formula, some random variable exists you can show. Now, that brings me to another geometric point. I said that this is your estimate, right. So, I said this estimate is your best estimate of y given x, and it is your estimate lying in the space of sigma x measurable random variables, correct. Now, we can show that expectation of y given x is in some sense the best estimator, okay, in the squared error sense, okay. So, if you namely if you have any function whatsoever, some h of x, so h of x is some sigma x measurable random variable, you can show that its error from y will always be bigger than or equal to the error from your conditional expectation, and geometrically it makes perfect sense, right. So, suppose you are given a point y outside the subspace, you want to find a point in the subspace which is closest to your y, you would just find the foot of the perpendicular, right, in Euclidean space, and the same intuition goes through even in this Hilbert space. This is all some Hilbert space of L2 random variables, right. So, this theorem the conditional expectation is conditional expectation E y given x is the minimum mean squared error or MMSE estimator of y given x, and minimum mean square estimator of y, okay, i.e. for any measurable h, we have expected x minus, well I should say, okay, I think I am going to mix it up a little bit now. So, y, so I am y, so this is what I want to say, y minus expectation of y given x the whole squared is less than or equal to the expectation of y minus h of x the whole square, okay. So, y minus h of x whole square is that norm, right, you know that this behaves like a norm, right, expected square expected or the squared norm rather. So, this is less than or equal to that, what we are saying, okay. So, okay, is that clear? Okay, I think I have to stop here because I am out of time. Yeah, maybe we will continue with the proof of this next class and move on to the next topic. It is actually a fairly straightforward proof.